Today we are working on the St. Stephen's Cathedral Gingerbread House. As you can see here, St. Stephen's Cathedral stands right in the center of the city of Vienna. It is the tallest church in Austria and is definitely a symbol of this city. So I'm giving it a crack. You're joining me halfway through the build process so far. As you can see here, I have my mock-up out of recycled cardboard. I have my gingerbread template and I have my gingerbread house. This is the very first mock-up that I whipped up today out of my template. I can already see a growing list of adaptations that I need to make in order to build this into the perfect St. Stephen's Cathedral inspired gingerbread house. But before we do, I want to rewind you all the way back to the beginning of this process and show you where it all began.
As always, I start the process by searching for images of the original building to see it in more detail. And I start to sketch it out from various viewpoints, looking for the main shapes that will make up the 3D structure. I then grabbed some pizza boxes and brought the shapes to life. For this design, I first made a miniature version just to make sure that all my proportions looked good. Later on, I doubled the structure in size. Once the main structure was complete, I added some of the overlay details which will stick onto the main structure. Ultimately, I decided not to add any windows into the main structure this time, so it will not be able to be lit up from the inside like we see with a lot of gingerbread houses. But this building is so interesting that I don't think it will need it. I ummed and ahed a lot about how I would create these two front towers that we see on the St. Stephen's Cathedral. As with most of my designs, I want them to be replicable so that anyone can create it. Therefore, I usually go with the least complex option. So instead of creating more multi-sided 3D towers, I decided for a flat gingerbread overlay to stick onto the front. I created each part of the side towers separately, which can then be stacked up into the high forms on each side. Here is my completed mini mock-up. I think it's super cute. Very, very happy. Time to upsize to fit to my cake board. The same as I did it in the mini version, I started by sketching out the bird's eye view floor plan so that I could build up from there. The only difference is that here I added these thin pointy corner details to each exposed corner to add a bit more interest to this intricate building. We have our design complete, so I went ahead and drew each individual piece to create my gingerbread template. As you can see here, at this stage I decided to try adding the window cutouts to the main structure. This didn't go to plan, so I want to adapt this. Now you're all caught up.
And we're back. So, of course, you can see that I did do the first mock-up out of gingerbread from my template off camera. This was so that I could just quickly whip it up and really see what it looked like. Now, as I said, there are things I want to adapt about this before I move forward and make the next one. So, first things first, the front is really giving me bunny ears and is not exactly how I envisioned it looking. So I'm going to reimagine this front section. Let's see what comes of it. The towers, I'm really happy with the shape of them. However, they're not sitting flush against the body of the gingerbread house. So I'm going to see if I can maybe adapt the roof or the size of the roof so that I can get the towers to sit flush. The other thing I want to adjust is these lovely peak embellishments on all of the corners of the gingerbread house. I think they add a really nice touch because this is a really intricate Gothic building, but they are just not tall enough. Those are the major adjustments that I want to make. Actually, they're not major at all. So these are the minor adjustments that I want to make. I will then put them into my second version of my template, get cracking on building it once again without any decoration so that I can make sure I'm really happy with the design before I put in all the effort into decorating, which will be the third time I bake it. And hopefully then we are set for a grand reveal. So let's get cracking.
I went back to the drawing board on the miniature version. I drew the front side of the main structure and then sketched out my new vision for the front towers on top. Instead of one flat cookie overlay, I decided to try 3 layered cookie overlays. And then transferred this into a template. Spoiler alert, it turns out freaking awesome. I made it again to fit my larger model template, and then just for comparison, here is the previous design versus the new one. We are ready to bake, so I grabbed my baking mat, my reusable baking sheet, and got my station set for rolling out my dough. This stuff is sticky, so I use a generous amount of flour to save my frustration at the dough sticking to my roller. I cut out each piece of the template onto my rolled dough and stick it in the oven for approximately 10 minutes to bake. You can find my recipe for this perfect construction gingerbread on my website if you're looking to build one for yourself. And voila, we have our golden gingerbread pieces all ready to go. Before I start connecting all the sides, I grabbed my disgusting baking tray, please excuse me, and my grater to shave down any bumpy sides. I don't always do this, but when I'm feeling like creating true magic, the straight edges really make a difference. I also use a grater to shave my roof edges into an angle so that they fit beautifully together at the top. We are ready to go. I have my piping bag with thick glue consistency icing that will make sure the pieces stay in place solid as a rock. Then I use spare containers to make sure the structure doesn't fall down when the icing sets in place. As the main structure dries a bit, I move on to building each of the tower sections and adding on their roof bases. I set each of these aside to harden and they'll be ready to stack shortly. I'm now adding the back part of the building. It's hard to see from this angle, but the back of the cathedral has a lower roof pitch, which is why I'm adding this section on as an addition to the main structure. Some time has passed and now the structure is sturdy, so I'm moving it onto my cake board. I could have built this onto the cake board from the very beginning, but I got too excited and I forgot, so I'm moving it now. As the structure is now sturdy, I can safely add each piece of the roof into place. I paid close attention to the way I constructed the side walls from the very beginning so that the roof would rest upon the side walls and therefore they won't slide off. And the last part of the main structure is the back roof. I checked first that the towers were now sitting beautifully flush with the side walls and then glued them into place with my icing. This was a huge improvement from the first version. Onto my front tower cookie overlay. I stacked each of the pieces and then stuck it all together. I can't wait for you to see this. This is a really cool detail at the end. It turned out awesome. The final details are now coming together. Here I am assembling the peaks of each tower. These small pieces are a bit fiddly to cut out of the gingerbread dough, but they come out really nicely and stick together quite easily, and they look fantastic on the top of the towers. The side panel overlays have come out great and give an essence of really large window panes, so I love this little detail. And last but not least, adding the corner embellishments. Right, so a few weeks have now passed, but I am now finally ready to show you the final product. So, here she is! You know what? I love her. But what we actually want to see is a decorated gingerbread house. So let's reveal her in 3, 2, 1.